Hey everybody, welcome back. In today's episode, I want to comment on this article I found about a young millennial who asks, what the heck did people do before the internet? How did they get information? How did they get around? How did they figure things out if they couldn't look it up online? Well, I was born in 1985, so I've got a taste of what life was like before the internet days. And then just as I was about to enter high school, my house finally got the internet and I was able to see the transition to a world post internet. And I could tell you about it and what people did about those things. But first, let's check out the TikTok. All right, so here's the source article from Yahoo, and it cites this TikTok down here. I'm going to watch it.
Genuine question to like older people, what did you do before you could look something up? Like if you saw someone and you were like, oh, they remind me of that actor, what was that, what's his name, like, and you couldn't, and none of your friends knew, would you go to a library? Like and like, okay, without Google Maps, like I know that there was MapQuest, but before that, like genuinely, what would you do? Would you just accept not knowing? Please stitch this and tell me, because I genuinely do not understand.
So yeah, those are some interesting questions. And when it comes to movie stars and actors, you couldn't just look them up on IMDb like you can today. Instead, you'd have to look at the credits of whatever film you're watching, whatever TV show you're watching. You'd be watching all the media promotions about that particular movie or that TV show, like Jay Leno or Johnny Carson or whatever late night talk show host had those particular actors on. That's kind of how you get to know them. Harrison Ford would be interviewed by Oprah, and all these big stars on these other talk shows talking about their movies. What you didn't really get to know very well were the kind of side actors and all of those supporting roles that are in movies and TV. I think a lot of times people will remember side actors by the role that they played and where they've seen them before. For example, if you're watching an episode of Seinfeld and Rob Schneider was guest starring, a lot of people probably wouldn't have known who Rob Schneider is by name. However, a lot of people probably would recognize him as the funny hotel worker from Home Alone 2. And they'd say, oh yeah, I remember that guy, he was in Home Alone 2. So I think this kind of inflated the celebrity culture from the 1990s and the 1980s a lot more, because you would get to know the movie stars in the lead roles very well, but you wouldn't hear very much about many of the other actors that are in the supporting roles. This also made the fantasy aspect of movie special effects a lot more fun, because you couldn't just look up the physics to see if a stunt would actually work in real life. You'd often see bombs that acted unrealistically and bullets that couldn't penetrate cars, even car windows. But nowadays, we have plenty of YouTubers who have done numerous experiments showing you what bullets and different calibers will penetrate. And speaking of firearms, I think the internet has also made it a lot easier and more accessible for people to learn about different types of firearms and how to safely handle them.
Nice looking Luger.
I feel like most people weren't that knowledgeable about guns unless they grew up in a family that was really into that sort of thing, or you were in law enforcement. Now, if you need to know something about a more specialized kind of topic, like about medicine or the field of law or something electrical related, like engineering or something like that, I think a lot of people back in the 90s or 80s would have deferred to a professional specialist. And I think this is one of the reasons that doctors and lawyers have been so pedestalized in our society, is because the information that they've been able to acquire was very hard to attain at that time and required a lot of training. However, nowadays, a lot of things related to the topics of your health or legal issues, you could look up relevant information online. If you were working with such a professional, you would have to have a lot of trust in that doctor or lawyer, because you wouldn't have the resources available to double check what that person is telling you. If a doctor prescribed you a medication, you wouldn't be able to look up details about that medication online and learn what other alternatives that you have for treatment. You just pretty much have to trust the doctor that that pill or cream or whatever was given to you is going to work. Even in the early days of the internet, we didn't have as many websites, and we didn't have social media websites like Reddit or YouTube, where other individuals are sharing their experiences about their health telling you what worked for them and what didn't, and allowing you to judge for yourself. Nowadays, there's a lot more information out there for you to make better healthcare decisions. I think as far as getting around goes without Google Maps, I think back then, before the internet, people would just get to know the area that they lived in by exploring, or you'd have a friend or a parent kind of show you how to get around town. If you were going to venture farther away from home, you'd use one of these things. When I first got my driver's license, I didn't have one of these fancy things. In fact, this kind of blew my mind that I could have a map that I could carry around that shows me where I'm going in real time. This was a big deal for me. But I did have MapQuest and a printer, so anytime that I would be traveling somewhere that I'm unfamiliar with, I would plan the trip ahead of time, and I would print off the maps and carry them in my car and hope I didn't get too far lost off of that map. For me, I really didn't know how to get much of anywhere outside of my immediate neighborhood until I started driving. Getting lost was something that could happen a lot more frequently, and I think it was a lot more common to stop at a gas station and ask the gas station clerk for directions. I think before the internet, people were a lot more approachable in this way. You could have conversations about these things that you don't know and trade information. And nowadays, just look it up yourself. And in a way, that kind of breaks down some of the social dynamics that we used to have. And maybe that's some of the things going on in society, why people are so atomized and isolated today. The information that you have available to you today is a gift. You have the potential to be more educated and informed than any group of humans ever had in the history of this planet. Today, it seems like the internet causes so many problems. People complain about how online dating sucks, or social media addiction, how our politics are so polarized now. But I think a lot of that is a side effect of the information that we have available to us. It's coming with some side effects. However, if you know how to use it constructively, you can apply that information in ways that previous generations could never do before. Anyway, that article made me want to think and reflect about how the internet's really changed life in what I've seen in just my lifetime, something that I think Gen Z probably takes for granted. And you know what? Things are about to get even crazier with the invention of AI and how that might integrate into our lives over the next 15 years. So anyway, I hope you liked the video. If you did, don't forget to thumbs up this video and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. I'll see you next time. You'd have situations where bullets can bounce off of cars,